My name is Era, and I'm the host of the Tamil Creator Podcast. I chat with creators from all over the world to share their stories and discuss hot topics in a way that I hope inspires, educates, and entertains you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tamil Creator. I'm your host, Era. Today, I have Kavishan Pathmanathan, or aka Kav. He is the co-founder of the Fort Erie International Academy's basketball program with a recent grad in Leonard Miller, who was drafted 33rd by the Minnesota Timberwolves. So NBA fans, basketball fans, this is the episode for you. Kav, well, thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
And for those of you that don't know, Kav is actually the brother of Deluxshan, or Deluxe, who was a really good basketball player. I think he's also a coach at UIT, I believe. So
Yeah.
Basketball runs in the family. So I guess that leads to the first question, which is, I won't let you answer for him, but for yourself, like, why do you think, or how do you think your childhood or your like formative teenage years played a part in you guys, or you developing a passion for basketball and now kind of coaching it as well?
Yeah, it's actually funny. Like growing up, I actually hated basketball because of how much Deluxshan loved it. So I was like to the point where he used to like force me to play basketball. So I was like, as a rebellious kid, I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna hate the sport just because you're pushing it on me. But it was like my first year or like second year when I was at first year when I was at UTSC is where I kind of got involved in basketball in terms of like playing at a higher level. And then, just going around playing, loving the game. For those like 3 or 4 years that I was there, always around it because of Deluxe. Obviously he played high school, he played like junior American ball, and then obviously he was TTBA with, I'm pretty sure you were on his team at one point and stuff with the
Ajax. Against him, actually. That man, he haunted me in the playoffs. We were it's a tie game. I think it was like 5 seconds left or 3 seconds left. I got switched onto him. This guy pulls up and hits a three at the buzzer. So I still remember.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I always hear how good he is, but I've never seen it in my life. So I mean, I'm just gonna go with what I know. Like, so he obviously was a big part of where I am today with basketball. But during those teenage years, man, it was a sport that I hated just because of him. But I ended up loving it now because of him as well.
Were your parents into kind of sports, or like encouraging you guys to play sports, or like how did
No, man. Deluxe was doing Minadagam. I was doing keyboard at one point. Like basketball was, something that they just kind of allowed us to do, but more pushing on that musical side. But now, it's a completely kind of different tune. Right now that both of us are kind of in the space. They're kind of in it. They come to my games when I play in Scarborough. They go to his games in Oshawa. So they're kind of in it now.
That's awesome. Like, I guess tell us about like the path you took to kind of co-found, the Fort Erie International Academy. What is it? Is it like a business program? How does it get funded? Like, I'm just curious about the logistics of that as well.
Yeah. So it's actually a private school. So the school was here prior to us coming on board as a staff here. So it's been around for about 5 years, and started like during the heart of COVID, with like 30 kids from China. And from when we got here, we're going into our third year, there was probably about 90 kids or maybe 100 kids. We're going into year 5 with like 215 kids right now. We've grown the basketball program from 13 kids up to 60 kids now. We have 5 teams on campus. We got 2 teams that are using our brand kind of like remotely as well. So it is a school that kind of existed already. We've just kind of come in and kind of created this buzz for the Niagara region.
So it's a private school, but you guys co-founded the basketball program. I guess why somebody would go there is they still get the academic part, but they get like they understand that the kids coming in have a focus on basketball, but yes, they will take care of their academics, but it's like an environment catered to helping them thrive on the basketball side, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So like, for instance, like when he opened the school, I always had the vision of like, what's going to separate me from every other private school in Canada. He can sit here and compete, but he's not going to compete with Ridley, who's been around for 100 years. So he said, okay, you know what? I'm going to take some money. I'm going to dump it into scholarships, for sports, which is kind of where we came in. Our first year, we kind of came out with a bang. We graduated 5 guys. We were the first ever team to send a kid directly to the NBA G League Ignite from Canada.
Who was that?
Like Leonard.
Oh, it's Leonard. Okay, that was him. Okay, got it.
And then, going into this year, we kind of have a lot of buzz too, because we have 6 guys graduating from our team alone, and like 5 of them are going to be high majors. Like they're creating a lot of buzz. We signed a 3-year deal with New Balance. So it's the first time New Balance is officially putting a foot into Canada. So we're bringing like a lot of attention into the school, which is why, the kids are getting attracted to it, because they, number one, see the level of talent that's coming in, plus the level of coaching that they're getting. So we get kids from like coast to coast, pretty much Vancouver all the way down to Halifax and up and down from Quebec to here.
Do you find that, I mean, I think that especially the last couple of years, I mean, if you look at the Canadian team for I think the Olympics or international, like the team is pretty stacked, and like 5 years ago that wouldn't have been the case. So I mean, it's obviously because a result of kind of the pipeline efforts of folks like yourself. So I guess what have you seen change from year one to year five? I mean, obviously the size has grown, but like what else have you kind of seen change around how Canadian basketball, especially at a junior level, is viewed maybe like now?
Yeah, I think like, when we were kind of growing up, organized sports was not as big. Like, you're just used to playing outdoors and all that. But now it's become so structured just from the top to bottom. There's clubs all over the places. There's prep schools all over the places. Basketball is kind of becoming like that affordable sport now, like soccer. You just need a ball and you need a net, right? I think the Raptors winning the championship, the Vince Carter effect, like all those kind of small little things created a ripple effect across the country. And kids are just, putting down where like they're playing like soccer, they're putting the soccer ball down and picking up a basketball late, getting into that. The level of coaching has gotten much better. Like there's a system now for coaches to get educated properly. We're pushing out a bunch of coaches to go coach NCAA, NBA, U Sport, all these places, right? So I think top to bottom, as the kids develop, us adults around them are also developing in order for us to kind of, get that next wave going to where they need to be and reaching their maximum potential. So I think it just started from, man, like 10, 15 years ago, like just small little things now have created such a big wave that everyone's just like, okay, what do we got to do? And we're all working as a country to support each other.
Yeah, I read a thing today. I think the Raptors are worth like 3.4 billion, and I think it's like 1.2 more than the Leafs. And so 10 years ago, if you told that to anybody in Canada or Toronto that the Raptors would be worth way more than the Leafs, you'd have been laughed at. But obviously a lot has changed in 10 years. So that, everything you're kind of saying corresponds to, like, money also talks as well.
Yeah.
There's a business side to this as well. So I guess going back to this, like, I mean, obviously there's a non-business aspect of it, which is you're helping create the next generation of future Canadian basketball players, and that's obviously cool, especially if you love the sport like you do. Is there like a business aspect to this? Like, are you guys hoping to grow to a certain point? Is this something you're able to do full time, or if not, like based on the growth you're seeing, when do you think you'll be able to do that?
Yeah, I think like, I mean, it being a private school, like the kids just got to pay tuition to come here. So naturally, as kids come here and pay tuition, like we keep our jobs. Their school does provide a certain amount of scholarships, but nothing that's crazy. The kids are still gonna have to pay to get here. Now, from like a business standpoint, the owner sees it as him putting in scholarships is kind of like marketing dollars for him. A regular kid is not going to go to the University of Buffalo or University of Maine or Kentucky or Kansas or whatever, right? So his reach is far greater with sports now because he can advertise those as like this FIA is sending kids out to these various schools, right? Whereas traditionally, if you go to like a public school private school down the street, they're only sending kids to McMaster and all those, right? So from his standpoint, there's money coming in through the basketball program through tuition, plus on the output he's making a lot more because kids are going to be like, oh, they're getting kids that are getting offers to Yale, Harvard, and all these. So that interest is going to come in, right? I was actually working full-time in insurance up till March, but I've made the transition over now since then, so I am full-time now in this space, which is great because it's for like 4 years I was grinding through the clock like pretty much 12-15 hour days, and it's still that, but now it's just what I love, right? Like I wake up in the morning and I know it's going to be basketball. It's not like I got to clock into my 9 to 5 and work on claims and shut them down and shut off at 3 o'clock and then go on the court. My energy is solely focused on this, the kids, making them better, growing the program, and just also working on like other projects too, like within basketball in Canada, and seeing where else can we do other stuff with community initiatives, and stuff like that. So I mean, I'm fortunate now to be doing it full time, but once upon a time, I mean, I was going through the grinder.
I mean, I think anybody that has done that, where like, you're kind of burning candles all day, like all hours of the day, where you're working full time to kind of support your daily costs, and then you have a dream you're kind of aspiring to, whether it's a business or co-founding like a basketball program. So it must have been like amazing to kind of get to the other side of the tunnel, the end of the light, kind of, when be able to fully transition and not have to do that crazy grind, I assume. Like,
Yeah.
what was the first day like? It must have been kind of weird not to have to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like not having. So what I did before was I would work like my 9 to 5, then I transitioned to 7 to 3 because our practice times went from 2:30 to 5. So I had to go 7 to 3. And once I was going 7 to 3, man, like I was waking up at 7, and some days we don't get to the house by like 10 p.m.
Wow.
And back in the morning at 6 o'clock, walking into the school, getting on my computer, logging back in, going through the grind. That first day of like being able to wake up at like 9, 10 o'clock, no alarm set. It felt weird initially because you walk in and you're like trying to log in and you're like, okay, what am I logging in for in this computer right now? Because I don't really have to do anything. I don't have to miss a workout. Like I can actually go to a workout now. So the first day, I mean, I'll be honest with you, like the first week was challenging because at one point I was just kind of like, okay, like what am I going to do? Because my whole life has been like go, 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 go. And then now it's kind of like more calm and relaxed and like this is all I got to focus on. So I mean, it's a blessing right now just to be able to kind of eat, breathe, and sleep this.
Congrats, man. That's a big step. I applaud anybody who kind of goes through that grind.
Yeah, I
Well,
appreciate it.
people always ask, like, how do you, like, not me, like anybody that kind of does what you do. I'm like, there's no real like shortcut. I mean, the shortcut is you got to just suck it up for some period of time. I mean, and hopefully get lucky a little bit on the way as well and get to that goal faster. But I think
Man, my story is pure luck.
yeah.
Pure luck.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned this earlier. You recently had Leonard Miller from your program get drafted 33rd by the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's awesome. It's great validation that your program works. What was that kind of whole experience like, seeing someone that, I'm not sure how long you had in the program, at what stage you kind of coached him from, like age-wise, but to see somebody that you kind of probably worked with very closely now kind of in the, going to be playing in the NBA because you got signed. Yeah, what was that like? And then also, are there any future prospects in kind of your program now that it's getting much bigger that you're pretty excited about from a future NBA aspiration point of view?
Yeah, I mean, like, so Leonard, he joined us in the first year of the program. But Charles, our head coach, actually coached all 3 of his brothers. So he coached Elijah, his oldest brother, Emmanuel, who's his second brother, who's still playing basketball in the NCAA. And then Leonard he coached Leonard when he was in like grade 9. And then Leonard went off to the States to do prep school out there. And then transferred back to us in his last year once we kind of opened this situation up. Our relationship is a little bit interesting because when he first came here, like I didn't like him. But by the time he left, I mean, it was probably like one of those situations where you'd think like a kid at his level and the amount of attention he gets, and they'd be walking around with like some sort of arrogance and cockiness, but he's not like that. Like he was like a true kid. Like I still remember the day before he left.
This episode is sponsored by nobody. That's right, nobody. So if you could be kind enough to hit that subscribe button, that would mean a lot to me.
He was at the coach's house until like 2 a.m. He brought like 5 teammates and he was like, yeah, I just want to play board games one last time before I kind of leave. So coaching him was actually, it's crazy the level that you see, like the difference between like high school and like what is like an NBA potential, because everything for him was like a walk in the park. Like scoring was easy, rebounding was easy, passing was easy. Like whatever you tell him to do it's like, we look at our stat sheets sometimes and we're so angry as a coaching staff, like he's not passing the ball, he's not doing this, he's not shooting the ball well. And our assistant Handel looks at us and he's like, man, he has like 42 points right now. It's halftime. And we're like, what the hell? So we're all sitting there scratching our head like, what can we go in the locker room and say to this kid to keep him going? You know what I mean? I think the biggest thing for us with Leonard is like, he's always willing to give back. Like anytime, like he's always on the phone with Charles. He's come back like 2-3 times now. He came back in March for our OSBA playoffs game, came and sat on the bench with us. Like he's truly one of those kids that's been a pleasure to be around. And I think like, I mean, in terms of like our future prospects, I mean, on my team alone, we have Christian Nitu is one, is like a 6'7", like power forward kind of position. We got Braden Jackson, Ishan Sharma, Oliver Faubert, Felix Kosara. So we got like 5, maybe 6 guys, 7 guys that'll go like high major by the time they're done. And you know, if they go into the right college system, maybe they'll spend like 3-4 years and then they'll make that leap onto whatever. But they're all kids that are going to play professional basketball at some level and make a lot of money doing it. So we do have a pretty good wave coming up. Like Leonard was great. We have a great wave coming up, and I think it's just going to continue with us attracting this top talent. And I hope we can just keep, you know, building out Canadian basketball future.
That comment about like how easy it was for Leonard Miller. You probably saw the video too, but like that video with like Brian Scalabrine playing against like, you know, Div 1 players or like this, like, obviously Brian Scalabrine, like, you know, he was an end of the bench player, but like, so you would think, okay, like you think you're closer to him than he is to like the LeBron, but then, you know, they had that whole video and his thing was, I'm closer to LeBron. I'm more closer to LeBron than you are like gonna ever be to me. Because like, schooling guy is so easy. So like the worst guy in the NBA is probably like 20 times or 100 times better than like the average guy playing in pickup or whatever it is, right? So
walk in the park. And it's like, it's crazy. My first time ever seeing that difference was I went to the Pan Am games that were happening in Toronto. And I remember JJ Barea was playing for, I think, Puerto Rico. I can be wrong, but he was playing for Puerto Rico and he was doing whatever. And I'm sitting there with Deluxshan. I'm like, this is an NBA player, like just running up and down the court, not doing anything. He gets fouled and he gets like elbowed in the face. And like this switch just turned on and he just went go mode. Like I think the next 12 points were just him, like just going up and down, doing his own thing. And at that point is when I realized like there's levels to this. Like it's not just like you're a basketball player, you're an NBA, like you're FIBA, whatever. Like there is legitimate levels to this.
Yeah, actually, on the I forget which episode it is, but there's a pro basketball player named Gokal Nadesan, and he's Tamil. He plays overseas. I think he's in Taiwan right now. He was actually the starting shooting guard with Jay in Taiwan. So like he's pretty good. And he's the same thing, just like the levels. Like I mean, he was obviously trying to get to the NBA and hopefully he gets there. But yeah, it's just crazy how we get fooled into thinking as like, you know, what do they call them? Couch basketball players, like you think you're good or like you can get to this level, but yeah, it's like there's like so much hours of work and dedication and just things that just put people on a different level. And obviously there's natural tools, right? Like I think Leonard Miller is like what, like 6'10", you know, smooth jump shot, and like you can't, not everyone's going to be 6'10" and that kind of So yeah, in terms of the coaching side as well, how did you kind of get to this opportunity? Like if you want to kind of look back, you know, 5-10 years, like what was kind of the different landing spots or opportunities that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, so obviously, you know, Deluxshan played like a huge part in it. So when I was still at UTSC, he was coaching Mumba at that time, which is like Markham Unionville basketball. And so I would just go help out whenever I can, take the bus down to like Birchmount and Finch and go and help out at the gym that he was at. And then kind of from there, you know, over the summer to make some cash, I was kind of like helping out with the Ontario basketball. Like they did like a summer development program. So I was an assistant with him. I think I made like $300 for the summer for like 700 hours of work. And then, you know, slowly through that, once I finished school and I got a job, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to coach on my own now. So I went back to Mumba. I got my own team, coached them for a year. Then that summer, I did Ontario basketball's U14 provincial team. And through that, I was connected to Canada basketball. So I worked on like the analytics side with them. Then I was connected with their junior academy program, which are kids that are in like the 2005 age group. They're born 2005. Then from there, like that group of kids, a lot of like the top talent were with this club called UPlay, which is like an AAU program on the Nike circuit. So I got connected there and I ran an event in the spring called the Signature All Canadian game, which is kind of like the equivalent of the BioSteel game for high school students. So I ran that And when I ran that, I guess, I did a great job. So the person who overseen Uplay and Signature kind of was like, okay, well, I want you to come on board with Uplay. So I flew down to Peace Jam, which is like Nike's championship for thing, and like that was the year that like Josh Primo, who got drafted by the San Antonio Spurs, Charles Bediako with the San Antonio Spurs, Ryan Nemhard is with Gonzaga now, is that age group. That was like big time playing. So I was there down with them. And then from there, Dwayne Washington, the guy who runs Uplay, started a school called Royal Crown, which is another prep school in Scarborough. So he started that. And when he started that, he kind of brought me on board with him there as well. And we spent 2 years there. I think both were during COVID. So it kind of sucked. We couldn't play games or anything like that, but we had like high level of kids. Then we kind of made a jump where we all kind of like separated and left Royal Crown, and all the kids left and they got, redistributed amongst the states. And then we kind of just landed with Fort Erie. It was kind of like a cold email that Charles sent out. The school responded back like, yeah, we're interested in having a basketball program. So, we came here, we settled, put our feet down, we sat down. I'm like, all right, what are we going to do? We recruited 13 kids, all 13 that we had personal relationships with. So I called that junior academy group that I was with 2005 kids, who are graduating now. Like I brought 3 of them on board. Charles brought Leonard. Jaden Clayton, we both knew since he was in like grade 8, grade 9. So he transferred from the US out of school from Phoenix over to us. Isaac Jack is a kid from Uplay that we recruited all the way from like Port Alberni, British Columbia. We brought him over here. So we just kind of that first year kind of like just dug down and we're like, all right, who do we know? Who are we going to call? How are we going to put this team together? So like me getting to where I am today, if I look, I mean, it's only been, I'm going on to year 5. So it's been 5 years, like kind of just the situations I've been in place with just pure luck and blessing, I guess. And just fortunate because a lot of people don't have this road this easy to get to kind of like this level and have their own little situation that they're running.
Yeah, there's a term for like there's like different kinds of luck. One is called like surface luck, I forgot, which is there's like different ones, but like one is just do as many things kind of in the world that you want to kind of get into. And like you said, it's a blessing, or it depends on how you look at blessing, luck.
Right.
That's kind of how you got these opportunities. So
definitely not surface luck.
yeah.
Surface luck is walking and finding like a dime or a
yeah. That's true. But I guess the idea is like if you want to get into basketball coaching, then do as many basketball coaching or related opportunities as possible so that somebody kind of you build a connection. It's like, building a business, you want to get clients, you got to test out a bunch of different things. And then, you might get lucky with a certain source that gives you a ton of business. So that's awesome that you kind of, I mean, I know you're saying it's easy because it's a 5-year like roadmap versus obviously you hear about coaches like who have to do like 10, 20, 15 years, but it's still hard work, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like the biggest thing out of all of it is like, I think this is something that a lot of people kind of overlook in today's generation is like they expect to get paid off the hop.
Yep.
Man, if you're expecting to get paid off the hop, it's never going to happen. Like you're literally just going to sit at home and wait forever for an opportunity. You got to get down on the ground and just work for free.
Yeah, and I think I agree with that sentiment as well. Even with like related to business, like I think people are like, if I do something, it's got to be successful. But I think the path that you took, it's something that I wasn't open to before, but like now that I have my own business, I have to do that for a while, which is kind of just work all hours of the day. It's hard, but that's kind of the only way you can accept the fact that you're not going to get paid for a little while. It could be years, and be okay with that because as long as you like it, it's kind of a good test as well. If you're not willing to not get paid for it, then you're not in the right thing as well. So
exactly, 100%.
We kind of talked about it earlier. You kind of told a story about this Tamil family. They came with their son, kind of like a drop into the academy, and for them seeing like a Tamil person in a coaching position at a really high level was kind of like an eye opener for them. So, I guess number one, I mean, I know your brother's in that space, but do you see a lot of other South Asians? Like, I was gonna actually ask you about like the Brown Ballers, the guys who kind of put together that South Asian team as well. But like, obviously, they're kind of more recent. But are you seeing more and more South Asians and specifically Tamils kind of in that high level coaching space in basketball? And like, I guess what is your advice to them, other than kind of one of the things you just said right now, which is don't expect to get paid for a while, but any advice for people looking to become like a professional coach or coach at a high level?
Yeah, I think it's funny with the Brown Ballers situation because one of the kids I have right now, his brother played on that team. TBT.
Sharma, right? You're saying?
Yeah, so his brother actually played on that team. But from like a coaching stand, I mean, like obviously the kid who came on the visit, like his parents were extremely complimentary of seeing a Tamil person in this space and all that. But I think like for the up and coming guys and girls that want to kind of get into this space, just got to get into it early. It's not something that you should wait on. You should hop on every opportunity you get, figure it out how you're going to do it afterwards. But as soon as you get an opportunity, kind of take it. But from like a South Asian standpoint, like there is like a lot of Tamil basketball players out there. Now it's just a matter of kind of directing them in the right areas of where they can kind of succeed. So like for instance, the kid who came here on a visit, like he's kind of in a bad situation. So I told his parents, I'm like, guys, like even if it's not Fort Erie and Fort Erie doesn't work out, like you guys have my number. Like call me anytime you guys need anything, whether it's walking you through something, whatever it is, just give me a shout. Like I don't have issues like giving advice just because you're not coming with us here. Like at the end of the day, there's still some sort of connection, right? So I think it's just the space is so congested that it might be hard for them to understand and navigate it, especially not having, especially this group of talent people going in the younger generation, like they don't have like the TTBAs of the world where it was popular back then, right? Like it's kind of died out now too. So they're kind of just navigating the situation by themselves. So like having people in the community like myself, my brother, and other individuals, it would be great for them to lean on. I'll say it here is like people should email us, call us, whatever it is, to ask questions because we do want to see more Tamil and people from South Asian descent playing basketball at a higher level, right?
Actually, there is her name's Sonia Raman. I think she's the assistant coach, one of the assistant coaches on the Memphis Grizzlies. She's
Oh,
actually
okay.
Tamil as well. I guess from your perspective, it's like, any job. What kind of things do you do to kind of improve your coaching skills and knowledge? Like, do you read books? Do you go to clinics? Like, how do you constantly improve yourself?
Yeah, so it's funny.
Did you know that every time you left a 5 out of 5 review for this podcast, a Tamil parent lets their child pursue a career in the creative arts? Okay, that's probably not true, but if there's a chance that it is, do you really want to jinx it? Leave a review. Do it for the young creative in you.
Like everyone keeps saying I coach. So I say I coach because it's the easiest way to describe what I do.
You do more than that, I know.
So coaching is probably the least I do. I leave that to Charles. Like he's our head coach. He does his thing. He's kind of like in that. I kind of navigate more on like the recruitment and business side of things.
Got it.
And then I obviously sit on the bench. I could help out here and there. I don't really put myself on a clipboard and draw. Like Deluxshan's great at that. I'm not that. Charles is great at that. I'm not that. I'm more on the business side. How can we grow this? How can we be different from every program? What kind of deals can we knock with certain companies that are special and different from everyone else? Like, for example, we just signed a 3-year deal with New Balance. They're Jamal Murray just winning the championship as a Canadian. They're trying to enter the market. So we're their first high school that they're sponsoring in Canada. So they're decking us out with all the stuff. They're decking our gyms out and doing all this stuff. They're doing, and traditionally every shoe company does that, right? Like they'll just come and plop gear in front of you and say, okay, here it is. This is what it is. But with New Balance, our partnership's kind of different. They're doing like online seminars with our kids. When we go down to Boston in December, we're going down to their headquarters. They're running a seminar for them in person. They're going to offer internships during the summer to these kids to show them that there's more to like the professional level of sports than just like dribbling a basketball. Which is something that when I was young, that's all I thought. I always thought it's 10 people on an NBA team, the 2 coaches, and there's nothing else to do in basketball, right? So from like a coaching standpoint, I don't read books and stuff. But from like a business standpoint, recruitment, that's where I kind of put more of my attention to. So I'll listen to a lot of podcasts from like scouts, NBA GMs, representatives of different shoe brands, because they also have a lot of ideas on how to grow the sport just outside of bringing high level talent in. So from that standpoint, I kind of put my attention towards that. So although I might be wearing a polo and holding a clipboard for Charles on the sideline, I'm not necessarily coaching.
It's all for show.
Yeah, it's all for sure. Exactly. Just so people don't ask me too many questions like, oh, what are you doing? I just coach. That's all I do, man. So yeah, that's, when people say coach, I don't want to take the credit away from the people that are actually out there grinding with the clipboard, right? I'm kind of just in the background, making sure the show kind of runs.
So on the business side, how do you get a deal like New Balance? Like, how do you get them to get that sponsorship deal? How did that happen?
Yeah. So for instance, so we actually were at that time talking to Nike, Adidas, and New Balance. So Nike was through my relationship and Charles's relationship with Uplay. Adidas was through our girls coach on here at Fort Erie. His one of the kids that he coaches works with Adidas Canada. So they kind of approached us initially. And then New Balance was through him too, through a mutual connection in the US, and they kind of came on board, and we all sat at the table, and this was like literally a deal that was like last week that was struck. We kind of were like, okay, like we need something different. We want to really separate ourselves. What can each of you guys offer? And everyone came to the table, and New Balance was just, there are schools that are sponsored by Nike here. There are schools that are sponsored by Adidas here, but there's no one really that has a true New Balance sponsorship. So, they kind of had the same visions as us. It kind of aligned in terms of like how they want this to kind of grow, how they want our program to be kind of like that first footprint in Canada for New Balance. So yeah, it was like the basketball world is as big as it is. It's small. So, it was just through like mutual connections, how we got to the table with everyone.
How do you sell somebody on coming to Fort Erie? Because I know it's close to like the border. So number one, like, do you live in that area, or like do you commute back and forth? And like number two, like if I'm like I guess if I'm an elite basketball player, I want to just focus on like my game. It doesn't matter where I am, but how do you like pitch somebody on, hey, let's come to Fort Erie?
Yeah, so I don't commute. So I live out here. The school's provided with me with a house. So I actually live literally like 30 seconds from the school.
Nice.
How do I bring kids here? So the first most important part of the equation is Charles. Like without him, there's nothing here. The high level coaching is the most important thing. I could be the best recruiter in the world, have the best eye for talent, bring in the best shoe brands. If there's terrible coaching, we might get the kid for 1 year max, and they won't develop, right? So him being here is big time. Like he's the national team coach. He coached overseas in China. He started prep basketball here in Canada for the first time ever 13 years ago. So he's been in the space for a long time. So without him, there's no selling point at all. I would say he's the biggest attraction, to be honest. I mean, from me, when I recruit kids and I sell the school and us, like he's the biggest part of it. So I would say, like, from that standpoint, a lot of the kids are coming because of him. The other 25% might be the personal relationship that I might have with them. Knowing them since they were in grade 6, grade 7, having a relationship with their parents and families, other stakeholders involved in their life, coaches, etc. That's what brings them to the table. And then, having him here is kind of that, that like the hammer to the nail, kind of just putting it in, like, this is what you're going to get. This is who he's developed throughout the years. This is how we do it. We have a pretty good recipe here. I mean, it's pretty simple. We're just in the gym with the guys all the time. So from that standpoint, like, yeah, it's the middle of nowhere. We tell all the kids, you'll find out real quick if you like basketball or not, because there's nothing else to do here. There's no Ubers, there's no lifts, there's nothing. Like, there's DoorDash. It's the best thing you're gonna get. McDonald's closes at 10 p.m. Like, it's basketball, which is what we love. It's what the kids that we bring love here. And he's a huge part of that equation.
That makes sense. As you're talking, like you're talking about New Balance, and it just triggered a thought of like New Balance is probably not considered, like, if you look at the tier of like basketball brands like Nike and then everyone else. And I thought of watching Winning Time with it's like the HBO series on the early Showtime Lakers, kind of the dramatization of kind of how they came together. And there's a scene where Magic Johnson gets pitched by Nike, probably like Nike when it was like, like out of the garage kind of stage.
Yeah.
And I think Phil Knight offered him a deal, which was like 80,000 or 100,000 stock options and like a, $20,000 signing bonus. He's like, bet on us. And I guess he got talked out of it by his advisors to sign with like Converse, which was kind of the big brand at that time. I think he lost $5.2 billion on that deal by not taking those $80,000 options. I don't know,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It's yeah, like it's interesting, right? When you look at it from that standpoint, like even like so we're going into our third deal now in 3 years. And our first year we went with a Chinese company called ANTA.
Yes.
And that was through like a mutual relationship.
I see more players go with ANTA, by the way, like in the NBA,
Yeah,
like Klay
because they're
Thompson and like a few
paying
others.
out like crazy.
Yeah.
I think, is it Kyrie that just, or was he with Li Ning? One of the two, I think he went with.
The guy
like
from Minnesota, the shooting guard, Anthony Edwards, I think just signed with ANTA. I thought.
Yeah. And Kyrie just got he signed and got a job there as like the chief creative director or something
right.
like that.
Yeah.
Like they're just dishing out the money, right, to get these top guys there, to hopefully beat out the Nikes in that space. But those guys are like sharks; they own the market. So like for us, like the first year we were with ANTA, the second year we went with a Canadian company called Exist, and those guys were amazing. Like they fitted all our guys. We make custom uniforms, jerseys. And then this year with New Balance, it's just like, kind of what you're saying right now, like they're on the same page that we're on, kind of like they're like, bet on us, like don't go with Nike, Adidas, bet on us. We're going to take care of you guys. We're going to grow together. And we're also like, we're a third-year program, bet on us, like we're going to grow together and get this space as well, like the Canadian market. So it's interesting from like that standpoint. That's how like even when I had a call with them today at like 10 o'clock, and it's like 45 minutes of like basically it felt like a TED talk. We're just like inspiring each other to like kind of grow. But yeah, it's an interesting space once it starts getting into like that business level stuff.
And I think New Balance, and I think why did he leave? He could have had two. We could have had back to back, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. It's a whole nother can of worms we don't want to open.
In terms of, because you kind of talked about your path here, and it was obviously like hard work, series of fortunate events. How do you feel about social media and like, leveraging that to create opportunities for yourself, and like, I guess the impact of networking, including social media? I don't like the word networking, but it's building relationships, but maybe talk about maybe social media specifically on creating opportunities.
Yeah, I with social media, I'm careful. Like my account's private. I had it open at one point, but then I just had like everyone following me and viewing my stories and all that kind of stuff. I kind of like to lay low. So I don't really go out there and kind of like, promote myself and all that kind of stuff. I'd rather promote the things that I'm doing as initiatives and have people support that than promote me as have people come and support me as an individual. So from like a social media standpoint, I don't kind of rely on that. Like I see kids nowadays, and I mean, I was like this at one point when I was in school, is like you're relying on social media to kind of give yourself like confidence and all that kind of stuff. Like, oh, people are reposting my picture and liking my stuff and all that. Like I got a pretty nice, small circle of in my life now. I have my friends that follow me. I have the kids that I've coached follow me. But like other than that, I don't think, being out there and kind of like, oh, I'm living this lavish life, I'm traveling to Arizona and this, I don't think, it kind of does good for myself, like, like looking into it and like creating opportunities. I mean, it's just a matter, like if I build a genuine relationship with you or other stakeholders, like they're always gonna network and have me like meet people and create those opportunities, right? I don't think, social media, we live in that era now. But I think in this space, specifically basketball, it's a lot of like face to face. You do make a lot of connection online, but I think it's a lot of like face to face, and people want to see who you like truly are, not just what they can see on social media.
I guess speaking on that, like in this world of social media, I mean, there's good and there's negative, which is the effect on mental health and things like that. As you've kind of got older and more responsibilities and like heavily more focused on this program and making it grow, often there's kind of this, it's hard to get balance in like life and like kind of your passion or work that you do. Have you found yourself kind of, I guess you've kind of already answered it in a little way, but love to hear more of how do you balance the thing you're passionate about and spend a lot of time on with like everything else, like family, friends, other kind of things that you want to focus on life? Like, how do you balance those?
So it's funny because I went on a camping trip recently with my friends, and we do it every year. Like, we went from when we were in school doing it like 4 or 5 times in the summer to like now we're just down to one. So we all find one weekend that we can kind of do. Like being in space, the one thing I said on that trip was like being a coach, you put others in front of you so much that you kind of put yourself in the back seat. And putting yourself in the back seat, you kind of, like, I don't want to say abuse, but kind of put the relationships you have in the backseat as well. Like your parents, your siblings, niece, nephew, all these people who, I would have seen if I lived in Toronto every single day. But now because I'm 2 hours away, I'm seeing maybe once a month. Like in season, I'm probably going home like 3 times in the span of like 7 months. So it's hard. Like it's not easy on me, but I think, the one thing that's good is
Money can be hard to come by, but here's a $100 opportunity for you. Join my free newsletter for free exclusive content and a free chance to win $100 when I hold special draws. Did I mention that it's free?
when that kid, like for Leonard, for instance, grew up in Galloway, like single parent household, 3 brothers, like he's made a generational change right now, for not only his family, but that next kid in Galloway that's from a single parent household, doesn't have all the needs that and then, getting kids scholarships, those kind of things. Like those are the kind of things that kind of put a band-aid on, kind of what you're kind of ruining for yourself, I guess. And maybe ruining is not the right word, but definitely, it's hard to balance. It's definitely hard to balance. Like, yeah, it's hard to balance. The reason why you don't go home often is because you're in the gym so much, you're traveling, and you at this point, like I'm basically checking with my mom on WhatsApp, like that's the kind of era that we're in. And it's kind of a situation, but at the end of the day, when these kids graduate and you get that feeling of like sitting there at their graduation, at their weddings, that's when you get that satisfaction of like, okay, the sacrifice is worth it.
Yeah, I forgot the saying. It's like, a wise man or something along the lines of like, if you're whatever you're planting, you likely won't see kind of the full benefit of like what you planted. I guess you don't sit in the shade of the tree you plant, something like that. I always mess up quotes, but it sounds like that's kind of what's getting you kind of through this,
Yeah,
this period. Yeah. I'm not a fan of the word failure, but let's call it learning lesson. But what's something you've experienced, like a learning lesson / failure, in the last 3 to 5 years, and what did you learn from that experience?
and maybe it's not a failure, but when we left Royal Crown, obviously we didn't leave because we wanted to. Like, I was in Toronto, I'm in Scarborough, I'm 25 minutes from my house, ideal situation. But things happen, it's the nature of the business. So I'll consider it a failure. I won't kind of dive into it, but that's something that happened 3 years ago. And since then we've kind of grown Fort Erie. And some of the mistakes that were made there, like kind of ensuring that like it's not made here. I can't really dive into the specifics of it. But I've learned a lot, and it burnt me hard leaving that situation. So knowing what caused that, we've created this family and staff here at Fort Erie that we know that no one's gonna turn around and say like, okay, all right, well, I'm gunning for your job, or I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We're all here for the kids, number one, and us, number two. And I think as long as we bring in like-minded individuals like that kind of see the same vision, rather than, well, this is the biggest name out there, so I'm going to grab that and bring that into my house, rather than, what, I'm going to grab this guy that we have the same values as, and we'll grow this together and get him to be that big name that we want him to be. That's something that's I've definitely learned from the past in the basketball world. So something that Charles and I both in this program is that whoever we bring on board has the same vision as us and is willing to grow this community, our community in Fort Erie, basketball wise, with the same values that we have.
Yeah, I think it's an answer that I got similar to even building like a company. Like people always think you got to grab like the A-level talent, or like someone who's amazing at what they do. I mean, some skill is hard to teach, but most skill you can teach. It's kind of the attitude and like the EQ part, not the IQ, the EQ part that's kind of hard to teach. So like, you might get somebody that's maybe like an A minus skill, but like, A plus attitude and like, so definitely agree. It's kind of like why San Antonio, I mean, other than the last couple of years, it's done so well for like 20 years, right? You got a bunch of all-stars, but you got a bunch of guys who know their roles and like they fit well. The culture's amazing there, and it starts from the top down, right? So yeah, you kind of talked about this, earlier as well. Like you said that when growing up, you're really as connected to the Tamil community. Number one, has that changed? And like, how connected do you feel to your Tamil identity now?
I definitely feel connected to my Tamil identity. I don't think that's ever been kind of the situation, but like I think just while I was in university, I was never a part of the TSA. Kind of just kept to myself. Where I could have grown more and attached myself to the community, I didn't. Whereas like you see some other friends, you go to one of their parties and there's like 75 people in their university in the TSA, and I go to like a party I'm hosting and you'll see like the 4 guys I played basketball with, and that's all I have, right? But I think like I think being in this space right now and being in the role that I'm in, I've connected with people that I would never have if I wasn't in this space. I would have kind of just went about my life and we would have never been connected. But like there's a lot of Tamil people and South Asian people in different sports, not just basketball, right? So just connecting through them through sports has kind of like bridged that gap for me. So yeah, I think I have a fairly small community of Tamil people. And I'm speaking to my age that, I'm connected with. But for myself, like, I mean, shit, I'm tattooed in Tamil, like pretty feel pretty connected.
If you had a chance to go back in a time machine and visit your 16-year-old self, what would you tell him?
Don't bother going to university for econ and stats, go to sports management.
Nice.
I think being in that space, I would have maybe got connected to more people. Like I wouldn't have to kind of like walked upon this luck. Maybe I could have got into it more easier by just knowing certain people. Obviously the sports management course is probably not the most acceptable program in a Brown household. But that's something I definitely would have told myself, because I mean, when I was in high school, I took a sports marketing course. And it's funny, my teacher who taught me that, Vlad, is actually one of my mentors right now in the basketball space. So he trains like Dwight Powell, who's with the Dallas Mavericks, and he trains a bunch of NBA guys, like all the Wiggins brothers and all that. So like, taking that class that early on, making that relationship with him, even while I was in university after I graduated, like I was still able to connect with him. So if I was going back in time, I'd be like, man, just stay on that path. Although I hated basketball at that time, like, just going into university, like rather than just going through that traditional, going to biology or, sciences and all that, or maths and all that, probably just should have went to Brock and took sports management. And, maybe I would have been in a different situation or a different pathway.
And I guess moving forward, like looking forward in terms of your personal legacy, in a few sentences, like how would you want to be remembered by your friends and family?
I think definitely want to be remembered for what I kind of am doing here. Just like the impact that we have on these kids at this stage in time is like probably the most malleable they're ever going to be in life, right? Like we're in that part of their life where we're guiding them through school breakups, friendships, basketball up and downs, mental health stuff, being away from home, choosing what kind of courses they want to take to kind of get them to where they want to be in life. So like being in this space, I think like my legacy and my success is going to be where my kids go, right? Like, and when I say my kids, my players, and what they do is kind of going to be my legacy and what I'm kind of putting down on this earth. I kind of want to be remembered for hilarious coach off the court, but a nut job on the court. And I'm pretty sure 12 out of 12 guys that I coach right now will agree with that. And that's kind of what I want to be known for. Just what my footprint's going to be here at Fort Erie is kind of the legacy I want to leave behind.
It's a good segue into the final segment of the podcast. It's like a fun speed run. I like to call Creator Confessions. I'm going to basically say a bunch of statements. You're going to give me a quick answer. Ready?
All right.
Favorite Tamil food?
Kotrodi.
Something that scares you?
Ghosts.
Insecurity that you have?
This bald spot on my beard.
Favorite show you're watching?
The Office,
Place you're itching to travel to?
Spain.
A fellow Tamil creator you want to give a shout out to?
Uh, ooh. You, Ara, you're doing all these segments. I don't know if anyone gives you a shout out.
I'll take it. Favorite childhood memory?
Favorite childhood memory. Going to Sri Lanka.
Something you like to do for fun outside of work?
Smoke shisha.
Favorite movie of all time?
English or Tamil?
Yeah.
Ooh. Behind Enemy Lines.
Decision you've been putting off for a while?
Decision I've been putting off for a while. Getting married.
Let's see. Okay, who would you want to have on your personal invisible council? Like you can pick anybody to kind of have access to 24/7, like, you know.
George Raveling from Nike.
What does he do?
He's like the head of basketball.
Cool.
He's the one that's originally, you watched that movie Air?
Yes.
So he's the one that brought up Michael Jordan to be like, yeah, let's sign him.
Oh, got it. Okay. What's a purchase you've made in terms of like a splurge in the last couple of years that you have no regret about?
My tattoos.
Pet peeve?
Oh. People who always have problems, no solutions.
Same. If you knew that you're gonna die tomorrow, a regret that you would have?
Not being home as much.
A celebrity whose life you'd want to experience for just one day?
Celebrity could be like a basketball player too.
Anybody, yeah.
LeBron James.
A book you've read or a podcast you've listened to in the last couple of years that's had an impact on you?
Simon Sinek, Infinite Mindset.
A belief, behavior, or habit that's improved your life?
Meditation.
And finally, a piece of advice that you'd give to your fellow aspiring Tamil creators out there?
Keep grinding. The path to success is not far away.
Love it. Well, Cav, that was great. Thanks for jumping on, sharing your story. I think people listening to this will like it, especially if they're into sports, especially basketball. For someone listening that's kind of inspired and wants to connect, to reach out, what's the best way for someone to reach out to you?
I would say Instagram. My account's private. Man, I guess you can still message on Instagram.
What about LinkedIn?
Oh yeah, LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. Yeah, you could definitely message me on LinkedIn. I don't check it as often, but I'll definitely be on there.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Cav, for jumping on, and for everyone listening. Appreciate you guys listening as always, and on to the next episode.
Thanks, Ara. I appreciate you.